pretty?
It's a little bit stressful, I'm not gonna lie.
You're all right, girls. He's not coming after you. Let's go. It's okay. I know. Come on.
Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. I thought today that we might put the shade cloth on the greenhouse, but it's been a little bit breezy. So I don't think that's gonna happen today, but we are going to take a trek down to the pond with the goats before we plant tomatoes in the greenhouse.
Come on, let's go eat grass, Christine. Come on. Come on, Winnie. Come on, short stuff. You gonna come? Gotta come out in the grass. Let's go. Come on. Come on.
So we are at the very tail end of April as of the recording of this video. It might actually be May by the time that this posts. And usually we do have to feed hay through April. It's because the first batch of greenery that comes up on our land is lots of buttercup, and buttercup in excessive quantity is toxic to goats, and I don't want them feeling like that's the only thing that they can eat. So we do feed hay through April, but I have just started feeding hay every other day to help give them some incentive to come out here, because if they come this far, there's a lot of nice grass and a lot of trees to browse on.
It's a big wide world. You're so hard to film. Bottle babies, they just get right up in your face. Because there's so much available as far as trees go at their level, I'm pretty sure they have not come out here, at least this far on their own.
And they tend not to. Every year it takes quite a bit of coaxing to get them brave enough to come out this far. But it doesn't help that the military installation that we live near has been doing a lot of training. They've been flying helicopters pretty low above our property, but that training, I think it ends today. And so we should be past that.
You got your hackles up for, ma'am. Well, blackberry is blooming. You guys gonna eat it? That's fine. If not, I'll be out here. That's right, Elsa, you eat that poison ivy.
Goats can eat poison ivy and it doesn't affect them at all. It will, like the oils from the poison ivy will get on their skin and their hair, and I can get it coming into contact with them, so I have to remember to wash up real good when we get back inside. Winnie is down to 1 bottle a day, but you can't tell her that. You get 1, you already had it. See, it's too windy for those shade cloth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be miserable.
Alrighty, so we've made it to planting day in the greenhouse. I only had enough soil to fill 4 of the beds, but it's enough to plant some of my tomatoes and tomatillos and other nightshades that are getting to be a little bit too big for their pots. And this is a very exciting time. So I'm realizing as we are starting to plan out the garden as it's going to be in this greenhouse as a raised bed garden, that the raised beds are actually giving me more planting space. You'd think that by kind of condensing the space down into these beds, this row actually is a little bit shorter, and we are sacrificing a little bit of row space on either side for the beds that are going to go over there, but the square footage is actually more than what I was able to get with the rows that I had in here. So we're not losing any space, we're actually gaining it. It's super exciting, a little bit overwhelming to try to figure out what to do with it all, but we will figure it out. Right here on the archway, as we walk through the front door here, I'm gonna put some Malabar spinach. I have tried to grow Malabar spinach for probably 5 years, and I'm learning that I need to start it in a start pot. We do have some pretty major issues with rodents and pill bugs, and both of those things will eat very tender seedlings. They do a lot better when they're a little bit bigger like this. And so I'm gonna plop these guys in here, and they're gonna grow along the trellis here. They're a heat-loving green, and I'm very excited to use these. I've heard some very good things. So as you can see, we have some mulch on top of the bed. I am gonna wanna move that aside so I can get into the planting hole, and I do need to wear gloves today. I have a decent little cut on my pinky, and it's not been fun trying to dig in the mulch and the dirt with that. I do have a trowel somewhere, don't know where. And I have this neat planting tool that I really enjoy. It's called a dibber. It just basically pokes a hole for you. Don't know where that is right now either, but that's okay. This is my first year growing tomatillos, and they've been trying to flower for a little while. I had been picking off the little flower buds, but I decided to leave these on. I am not entirely sure how tall these tomatillos are supposed to get. I had assumed at first that they would be growing kind of like an indeterminate tomato, but I'm not entirely sure. So they're gonna go on the end here. And something that I am intending to do with all of these plants that I forgot to do with the Malabar spinach is I am gonna put a 1/4 cup of Trifecta Plus down into the planting hole. Because this is a new planting space, it is gonna take quite a few years to really develop the soil in here. We did put good soil in here. It's Kellogg's brand. We have been liking it so far. But just as a little bit of a backup plan, I'm gonna throw a 1/4 cup about in each planting hole. I've written on the side of the pot what tomato is what. I will be putting in some planting tags inside the bed so we can continue to follow exactly what's what. Usually I can get a pretty good idea of what I've been growing, but I'm growing a lot more variety this year than I've ever grown, and I don't want to lose track. So this will be our first year growing this variety too, Ponderosa Pink. And I didn't do it with the tomatillos because, again, I'm not exactly sure how they grow and what their habits are. But for the tomatoes, I'm going to aim to plant them as deeply as I can. So I'm going to remove these bottom leaves. And planting tomatoes deeply, what that does, it allows all these little hairs that are on the stem of the plant, it allows those to turn into roots. And more roots equals more nutrient uptake and a healthier, stronger plant. Because we've recently filled these beds, the soil is pretty loose and I can dig quite deeply with just my hands. From what I understand too, you can also kind of lay the tomato plant on its side. Let's say you don't have a deep bed or you're planting in ground or something where you can't dig super deep, and the same thing will happen. The tomato stem where it's underground will put down roots, and even though the tomato would be laying on its side when you initially plant it, it won't take very long to start growing upwards. I'm gonna keep each pot at the base of the plant so I can remember what's what for when we mark it later. I'm aiming to space the tomatoes about every 18 inches in the bed here. I will be pruning most of these to like a single or a double leader. So there will be a lot of airflow. I am growing a few determinants and those are on the ends. So I can allow those to bush out a little bit more and they will have the space to do so. All right, so everything that's going in these beds for the summer is now in. So we have the Malabar spinach here, and on the other side of the trellis, I do have little itty bitty marigold plants as well as our ground cherries. So we planted probably at least 30 ground cherry plants, and so we're gonna have lots of those, but I need to mark the tomato varieties before I forget to. So I'm going to be marking with these plant markers and a Sharpie. I know that this is not the most ideal kind of tool for longevity of my words that I'm going to be putting here. Even though it's a permanent marker, these do tend to wear out pretty quickly. I don't know if it's the sun or if it's the water from watering, but I have heard people use like a wax, there's like a wax crayon that's working really well for people. I had thought maybe a Crayola crayon would be just the same because I mean it's wax, but this particular crayon that I just asked my kids if I could borrow, it says ultra clean washable. I didn't know that crayons needed to be washable, but these type apparently are, and that doesn't sound like it's gonna last very long. I'll do it anyways, but my backup plan is gonna be this video. So I'll be rewatching the video and probably making a chart as to what tomato is what so I don't lose track. First up is the yellow Brandywine right here. I have noticed that the Brandywine tomatoes are starting to get a little bit of disease on them already. Brandywines kind of do that. They are a little bit sickly in my experience, but I've not had them be sick before I ever put them in the ground. It's one of the reasons that I stuck them right here on the front. They're gonna have the better access to airflow because we are gonna be putting some fans in here. But also if and when they succumb, we can pull them out and replant them relatively easily when they're not like in the middle of a whole line of tomatoes. There's my washable crayon. Maybe if I tuck it down in the side of the bed, it will see less of the sun and last a little bit longer. We'll try it. Most of the tomatoes that I planted in here, I do have 2 of each, so I will probably elect to only label one of them, and when the one next to it looks just like it, I'll know what it is. This one is the San Marzano, and I can't remember if San Marzano is determinate or indeterminate. I tried to place the determinate varieties on the outsides of the trellis so they would have more space to bush out. I'll have to look this one up. As an example, I know that this Roma tomato is determinate, so I want to keep that in mind when it comes to me pruning later. I don't really want to prune this one into like a single leader. I want to allow for airflow. I do prune off some of the, like I call them sun leaves of the plant, but I don't want to prune off any of the productive leaves. We'll go over that when it comes time. Oops. This one is called the Black Crim tomato, and you see me removing some of the leaves. I'm just removing some of the ones that look a little bit sickly and leaving the nice green tops on them. This Black Crim tomato has rave reviews from all of you guys, so I cannot wait to try it. Over here we have 2 plants of Cherokee green tomatoes. I've never grown a tomato that is still green when it's ripe, so that's gonna be cool. The striped paste tomato. This is another one I'm not entirely sure if it's determinate or indeterminate. In my mind, paste tomatoes are all determinate, but that's probably not true. Over here we have the Black Beauty, classic. This one is the Brandywine Black. I don't know if that is truly what this is. This will be my first time with this particular tomato. But in my experience, Brandywine tomatoes normally have that potato leaf look to them. This one does not. It looks like a regular old tomato, but maybe to get the Brandywine black, they had to hybridize it with something else to get that coloring. Over here, 2 plants of Kellogg's Breakfast. Over here, 2 plants of the Mortgage Lifter tomato. These 2 here are really intriguing to me, the Hillbilly tomato. And then these 2, the Pink Oxheart. 2 plants of Ponderosa Pink. I almost freaked out for a second because that pot wasn't labeled. But these guys are pretty obvious. These are the tomatillos. They look really different. They actually look like really tall ground cherries. See those back there? The tomatillo leaf and the flower. Isn't that so pretty? It looks a lot like the ground cherry leaf. And these guys have started to flower too. See that? Super cute. This is only the start of the tomato varieties that we're planting this year. These are the tomatoes that I started first, and so they got a lot bigger. So I want to make sure that those got in a bed first. But I do have some other tomato varieties over here. Most of these are cherry varieties, although from about here over is not. These are slicers. I've got some Dr. Witchy's, Orange Accordion, Berkeley's Tie-Dye, and Alice's Dream. I actually noticed a funny thing about this Orange Accordion, and this is why I usually start way more than I need, because sometimes weird stuff happens. Look at that. It's like this seed just put on 2 seedling leaves and it's not going to do anything else. But they're huge. So yeah, we probably can't expect anything out of that plant, but that's okay. I probably have more than I can use anyways, and we'll give some of these plants away. My Super Sweet 100 for the 2nd year in a row did not germinate. This was pelleted seed that I bought. Never again. And then we have black strawberry tomato, blue cream berry, Berry's Crazy Cherry. I'm really excited about that one. But wait, there's more. Recently I started some varieties of things that I noticed I didn't have a great germination rate of, or I noticed that I left out. So my favorite slicer tomato in the whole world thus far is called the Belgian Giant. And I realized as I was kind of doing my inventory and marking and labeling all of the seed pots that I didn't have any Belgian Giant started. So I got 4 of them started here. I'm just thinning them out a little bit. There's a couple different things. There's some borage, which is a flower. There's some chard. And then I had some different pepper varieties that didn't germinate well. They are the Ajvarski, the Shishitos, and the Yellow Monster. And I do have a little bit of germination. A little bitty pepper coming up right there. Last year I had a horrible time with my seedlings because of the seed starting mix that I decided to use. It wasn't actually technically a seed starting mix. It was, I think it was labeled a potting soil, but it was the Stay Green brand, and I had tried to use that and it didn't work out very well. There's just not a lot of available nutrition in that particular soil in my experience. So anyways, because of that, I had to start from scratch some plants in May, and we did still get some peppers and some tomatoes. Actually, we got quite a few, and so even though it's a little bit late to just now be starting these things, I know that we've got plenty of time, especially growing here in the greenhouse. I did a tiny bit of cleaning of this side of the greenhouse. I do have a couple more birdies beds on their way, and then as I mentioned, we'll be filling these ones and planting them out soon too. Even though it is not sunny out this morning, it's very hot right now. It says it's 86 in the greenhouse, so all these heat-loving plants are going to have a good time with that. They're going to get to growing real fast. And I mentioned a little bit about putting fans in here. My husband recently outfitted the greenhouse with power, and this is awesome. It's going to allow us to put in some flow fans over here, as well as potentially heat mats and some kind of a heat source in the winter. Now, I'm not going to be able to heat the entire greenhouse using like a space heater or something. That's not going to work in a space this big. But these little mini greenhouses that I have here, we could at least plug in some heat mats or some kind of small heat source to keep those heated. So everything about the upgrades that we're doing to this greenhouse is making me very excited. It's a little bit stressful, I'm not gonna lie, to be doing these things in the middle of the busy season, but we're getting them done and it's gonna be well worth it.